You didn't borrow any money, but somehow you owe $23,000. Your phone rings at 8:14 in the morning. You don't recognize the number, but the person on the other end knows your name. They know your address. They know your employer and the bank you use. You didn't apply for anything. You didn't make a purchase. You haven't opened a new line of credit in over 3 years, but your name is attached to an account that hasn't had a payment made in 4 months. And the lender has moved past the person who actually borrowed the money. They've moved past the phone calls, the notices, the grace period extensions. They've come to you because you signed a piece of paper, because 2 years ago, on a regular afternoon, someone sat across from you and explained a situation, a need, a gap between where they were and where they needed to be. And they needed someone, not just anyone. They needed someone the bank would believe in. They needed you. And you said yes because you loved them, because you had good credit and a stable job and a track record that took years to build, because saying no felt like abandoning them and saying yes felt like exactly what family is supposed to do. That's where this starts. Not with greed, not with ignorance, with love, with trust, with a decision that felt completely reasonable at the time. You built your financial life carefully, not obsessively, not perfectly, but carefully. You knew your credit score. You checked it periodically. You paid your cards on time. You kept your utilization low. You had a savings account that wasn't impressive, but it existed. It was there. It was yours. You had a 9 to 5 that paid the bills, maybe a little more than the bills. You had a lease you qualified for on your own. You had a car payment you managed. You had a life that worked because you had been responsible when being responsible was inconvenient. And when it wasn't, you weren't rich, but you were stable. And stability, when you've watched other people not have it, feels like something worth protecting. The person who asked you, they weren't a stranger. Maybe it was a sibling, a parent, a partner, a best friend from childhood, someone whose history with you went back further than any financial decision ever could, someone who had been there for you in ways that had nothing to do with money, in ways that mattered. They had hit a hard point. Not the first one, maybe not the second, but this one felt different, more urgent, more real. They had a plan this time, a reason for the loan, something specific, a car they needed to get to a new job, a consolidation loan to get out from under high interest debt, a personal loan to cover a move, something that sounded structured, purposeful, and they had tried on their own. They had, but their credit score, their history, their income verification, none of it was enough. The lender kept saying the same thing. They needed a cosigner, someone with standing, someone the bank could trust. They needed you. The conversation didn't feel like a transaction. That's important to understand because when you try to explain it later to a credit counselor or a family member or yourself at 2 in the morning, it sounds naive. It sounds like you didn't read the fine print, but it wasn't like that. You read it. You understood it. Mostly. You understood that your name would be on the loan. You understood that you were agreeing to be responsible if they couldn't pay. But that part, the if they couldn't pay part, felt theoretical. It felt like legalese, like the warning label on a medication no one expects to experience. It was there. You acknowledged it, and then you moved past it because this was someone you knew, so you went with them. Or they sent you the link, or the lender called and confirmed your information over the phone. The process was unremarkable. A form, a few fields, income verification, a hard pull on your credit, a brief sting to your score, approved. They were relieved. You could hear it. You could feel it. The tension that had been in their voice for weeks, it broke. Something released. And you felt good about it. You felt like you had done something real, something that mattered. The loan funded. They made the first payment, then the second. You stopped thinking about it. It happened quietly, not all at once, not dramatically, the way most financial deterioration happens, incrementally, below the threshold of alarm until suddenly it isn't. The third month was fine. The fourth month, maybe the payment was a few days late. They mentioned something. You didn't ask for details. The fifth month, you got an email, not from them, from the lender, standard notice, payment due in 3 days. You forwarded it. They said they had it covered. The 6th month, the email came again, but this time it said past due. You texted them. They responded, said there had been a gap at work, a schedule change, a delay, said it would be caught up by the end of the week. You waited until the end of the week, nothing. And this is the moment that doesn't get talked about enough. This in between space before the real damage, before the collections calls, where you're not sure if you're overreacting, where confronting someone about money feels like an accusation, where the relationship, the history, the love starts to create interference, clouds your judgment, makes inaction feel like patience. So you wait another week. And then your phone buzzes with an alert, not from them. From your credit monitoring app, your score has dropped, not by 5 points, not by 10, by 41 points in 1 month, because a missed payment on a joint account doesn't just affect the person who missed it. It attaches to everyone on the account equally, immediately. Your name is on that loan the same way their name is. To the bureau, there is no cosigner distinction. There is no footnote, no asterisk. There is only an account and a status, delinquent, you call them. They answer, barely. They're apologetic but distant. They talk around it. They say they're working on it. They say they're going to call the lender and ask for a deferment. They say things will stabilize soon. You ask them directly, are you going to keep making these payments? They say yes. And you believe them again. Well, because you have to, because the alternative is to admit that the thing you agreed to, the thing you put your name on, has already gone wrong, and no one wants to believe that about someone they love. The lender doesn't call them first. This is something almost no one who co-signs a loan fully internalizes until it happens. Lenders don't have a hierarchy of responsibility. They don't try the primary borrower first and then escalate to the cosigner. They contact both simultaneously, or they contact whoever they're more likely to collect from. And often that's you, because your credit history is clean, your address is stable, you answer your phone, you respond to mail, you are, from a lender's perspective, the more reliable target. So now you're getting the calls, the structured ones first, automated reminders, policy language letters in the mail, then the real calls, a person, a script, a number that keeps showing up. And while all of this is happening, the account is aging, 30 days past due, 60 days, 90 days. Each threshold is a new entry on your credit report, a new mark, a new deduction, the score you spent years building, that you protected, that you used to qualify for your apartment and your car and the life you assembled carefully, is being dismantled, not because of anything you did, because of a loan you aren't making payments on, because of a debt that was never meant to be yours. You try to reach them again. Sometimes they answer, sometimes they don't. When they do, the conversations are shorter now, more fragmented. Something has shifted. The gratitude from that first day, the relief in their voice when the loan came through, has been replaced by something harder to name. Avoidance, maybe, or shame, or the specific distance that forms between people when money has created a fault line. Neither of them knows how to cross. They're not a bad person. That might be the hardest part. They're just a person who couldn't hold it together, and they let it fall somewhere easier, even if easier meant it fell on you. You find out eventually through a letter you weren't supposed to receive, but your name is on the account. So you receive everything, that the loan is now in default, that the lender has charged it off, that a collections agency has purchased the balance, $23,000. They want it from you because you are equally responsible legally, fully, without condition. There is no, but I didn't actually borrow this money defense. There is no, but they were supposed to make the payments clause that protects you. There is only your name, your signature, your credit profile, your number, and a debt you now have to decide what to do with. You start making calls to a credit counselor, maybe to a lawyer, to the collections agency itself, because sometimes settling the debt for less than the balance is the only realistic path forward. You learn things you didn't know before. You learn that a collections account can stay on your credit report for 7 years. You learn that a cosigner has the same legal exposure as the primary borrower, but none of the protections. You learn that you could sue them. You learn what that actually means, the time, the cost, the relationship it ends. You learn that the financial system doesn't factor in intention. It doesn't care that you were trying to help. It doesn't distinguish between a loan you took for yourself and a loan you guaranteed for someone else. The number is the number. The liability is the liability. The consequence is yours now. And the relationship, that's harder to map. Some people in this situation lose the person entirely. The dynamic breaks. It cannot hold the weight of what's happened. The calls stop. The silence becomes permanent. The friendship or the family connection reconfigures into something colder, something survivable but changed. Others stay. Work through it, find some version of resolution, some even rebuild. But the financial damage remains, regardless of where the relationship goes. The credit report doesn't update based on reconciliation. The collections balance doesn't close because forgiveness happened. The loan doesn't disappear because love was real. You spend the next several years navigating the aftermath, rebuilding the score, slowly, point by point, explaining the collections account on applications, sometimes accepting worse terms because of it, sometimes being denied, paying off a debt in some form or another. That was never yours to begin with, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, on a regular Tuesday, maybe while you're going through mail or waiting for a credit decision or just sitting quietly somewhere, you think back to that afternoon, the one where they asked, the one where you had the chance to say yes or no, and you think about the version of you that existed in that moment, who wasn't naive, who wasn't foolish, who was just a person who loved someone and wanted to show it in the most concrete way available, a signature, a piece of paper, a name, and you wonder not whether you made the wrong choice, but whether the wrong choice and the choice you made were actually the same thing. And if this story felt familiar, if some part of it reminded you of a decision you made or almost made or watched someone else make, that's not an accident. These situations happen every day in kitchens, in parking lots, over text messages, between people who genuinely love each other and genuinely have no idea how badly things can turn. There's more where this came from. Co-signed car loans that became decade-long financial scars, joint accounts that outlasted the relationship, medical debt passed down through families, credit card guarantees made out of guilt, adult money, adult consequences, adult stories that no one talks about enough. If that's the kind of content you want more of, you know what to do. Subscribe, not because of an algorithm, not because of a number on a screen, because the next story might be the one that changes a decision before it gets made, and that is worth a lot more than $23,000.